Shwmai, croeso, hello and welcome to the Bluebirds Nest, Neath yr Adair Gleision. For all of your up-to-date Cymru Premier betting, please take a look at our sponsors, dragonbet.co.uk. But as always, please gamble aware, please gamble responsibly. Now then, episode 22, I must admit, I feel a bit of an imposter with the two guests I've got joining me here tonight. The two of Pembrokeshire's finest media men, Mr. Bill Carne and Mr. Gordon Thomas. Welcome, both of you.
Good evening, Ryan.
Yeah, good, Ray. Nice to be asked. Two little ducks, that's us.
It's a pleasure to have you both on. I go back many years. I remember you interviewing me, Bill. I started Wolvesy and Sean Cresser brought me down to the club probably a decade ago now, I think it must be. And I've been in awe, I suppose, of what the pair of you have done for sport across Pembrokeshire. You know, from the coverage you provided in the printed press and on the radio to now being a vital, integral part of Pure West Radio with your pals Fraser, Ben and Tom. And obviously on the fantastic PembrokeshireSport.co.uk too. It's excellent. The platform you give people who are involved in playing sport and the watching from the sidelines is outstanding. So it's a pleasure to have you both on. Bill, I'm going to come to you first, if you may. Your services to sport and charity in Pembrokeshire were recently acknowledged by a certain King Charles. You were honoured with the British Empire Medal. So congratulations, huge congratulations on that.
Thank you.
As I said, it's completely justified if you ask me. Where did it all start and where did your passion for reporting on sports come from, Bill?
Well, I've always loved sports playing. I played nearly every sport with a ball, other than golf. I couldn't handle that. Gordon and I went on a golf shooting, a target golf once, and he murdered me. And I said never again, because he's like that. He can pick up any sport. But I played cricket for Pembroke, and the opening bat was me with Jeff Powell and Colin Cax. We were the first three. And Colin Cax came into the change room one day and said, you never guess what, I got a job with the West Wales Guardian. I said, oh, very nice. I was teaching English in Milford Haven Central then, teaching English, loved writing short stories, poetry. And the next week he came and he said, I'm sports editor. I said, well, that's quick. He said, you don't fancy helping me write some articles? And I said, I'd love to. I'd already spoken to Keith Johnson, who was the sports editor of the Telegraph, would help in there. And they said they didn't do stringers. Gordon will remember the term. That was people who were part-time who contributed stuff. So I said to Colin, well, as long as I can pick where we go and I'm not being told, I'll give you a hand. And I said to him, what I'd like to do, I'd had the idea for a long time, about interviewing a character in local sport. Not the best, not the worst, just people who play or take part in sport or help. And Gordon then was working for the Guardian as a what were you called?
I was a compositor then.
A compositor. His job was to take all this hot metal stuff and put it onto a page. It's very technical. I think you had a 6-year apprenticeship with that, didn't you?
It was actually 7, Bill.
7. You're like better than a doctor, yeah. And and so I said to him, what about doing this? And he asked the editor. He said, try 4 and see how it went. And 18 years later, I hadn't missed a week. And I was covering lovely people, top stars from Pembrokeshire, but also anybody who deserved a mention. Pigeon fanciers, anything. First one was Steve Holmes, and he always talks about it now. And I say, it's only because you were in school teaching with me and I needed someone quickly. But it developed from that. Edgar Evans always set them. Gordon always put them on the page. And that's how we became firm friends, God. That's nearly 40 years ago.
That's incredible, Bill, to think that, isn't it? It's a long time.
It is. Yeah. And we've never had a crossword, right? Because he always agrees with me.
Like an old married couple.
Yeah, you behave yourself. No, thank you. I love him as a brother. He knows that. Fantastic. But that's how I started. And the first game we went to was Milford Haven Rugby against Narberth. And in those days, it was the Pembrokeshire League. So they were all on a level footing. And Milford lost 7-6. And that was the first game. And that's how it started. And I've been involved ever since. And I leave you with this funny bit, because when I had the message on an email from the Cabinet Office in Downing Street offering me this, and I accepted, I said yes. I was told very firmly, you cannot tell anyone other than your immediate family. It could jeopardize your honour. So I thought, well, what do I do now? How do I tell Gordon? And I didn't. I dropped a few hints, and I think he might have picked up a couple. But I actually told him then, it was not New Year's Eve, the night before, 10:30 was the embargo lifted. And I think I phoned him about 9:45 and said, I got a bit of news for you. I've been honoured by the king, by the facilities there. So he was very nice about it. So I've been really heartwarmed by it all. And thank you for your good wishes as well.
Yeah, well, I was half expecting when your name came up on screen that you'd have the letters after your name this evening.
Don't be daft, will you?
No, no, fair play. That's some journey through sport then over the last 40 years.
I've covered, about 2,000 of those articles I've written. And Gordon and I started Pembrokeshire Sport, how long, God? 13, 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's at least that now.
We were doing a magazine in the Telegraph, and they stupidly cut it. So we decided we'd have a go. And it's grown from that. And now probably somewhere in the region of 40,000 hits a month.
Fantastic.
I know what a facility we supply. Good, now, the Telegraph, I can say it, all the local papers, they provide skimpy sport. We do a lot, don't we?
Yeah, it's a shame that they are, Bill, to be honest, but that's another issue.
Yeah. We won't go there. God, your King's Award, I'm sure, is on the way one day. It'll come, I'm sure, next year now. You're an encyclopedia of Bluebirds knowledge, I would say. God, the amount of stories you've told me over the years of little anecdotes that have come up. I think yourself, there's Barry Vaughan and Barry Webb will come to mind as well.
Yeah.
Club mastermind competition one day, I think we should do. What are your memories then of being down what was the Bridge Meadow, but the Oggy Bridge Meadow now? Was it as a fan first, or has it always been sort of in your media capacity?
No, it would have been as a fan, to be honest with you, Ryan, and a very young fan at that. Obviously, I have an elder brother, Stephen, who played for Haverfordwest, who you know, Ryan.
Yeah.
He made his debut for the Bluebirds in 1969 as a 16-year-old kid, playing along the likes of Mike Johnson, Ray Davis, Ivor Allchurch, the company of those guys. And that's when I used to first go down and watch my brother play for Haverfordwest County. I was only a 7-8-year-old kid then, and watched the games with my dad. And I remember one particular game, my mother, God rest her soul, she's gone a long time ago, but she never liked to watch her boys play sport, but she came down to watch Stephen play in a game against Pembroke Borough, which was a keenly contested game. And Stephen split his eye going up for a header with another centre forward, and he split his eye a good one, and it was pouring with blood, and my mother was nearly fainting on the touchline. And he came back out then, and he was all wrapped up in bandages and carried on playing, and she was giving my father a lot of stick to saying he shouldn't even be on the pitch. He shouldn't be playing like that. But Stephen he was a warrior, fair play. He looked like the fella Butcher who played for England in that particular game. So those were my first recollections that early in the 70s. Ivor Allchurch went on to be player manager. He was the most capped Welsh international at that particular time. And he was a gentleman, to be honest with you, a real gentleman. And I remember Swansea City, or Swansea Town as they were then, came down and played a pre-season friendly. And the great giant John Charles came down with them as well. He didn't actually play, but he was there at the game and signing autographs for the kids and everything there. Great times, brilliant times. And it's a funny thing. I don't think I ever paid to get in the Bridge Meadow.
You never paid to get in anyway.
As a Prendergast boy, Bill always reminds me as a Prendergast boy, we have these... we used to go down back lane, and there was an alleyway into the meadow, Ryan, and you used to roll down a bank and get into the crowd that way. And a lot of us kids used to go down and watch the games there. And the biggest part was trying to get onto the pitch and have a kickabout at half time. So we used to make sure there was a fellow by the name, Barry would know his first name, but it was Burke. Mr. Burke was the groundsman. And he kept all the kids off the pitch, but we used to make sure that we would be on the other end he wasn't at, and get onto the pitch and have a couple of shots into the net, because in those days we only had put our jumpers down as goals. To have a net and kick it into the net was a joy. That was fair play. So Frank Burke used to chase us off the pitch as well then.
Yeah. The pitch then wasn't where it is now. It was down where Morrison's is now, and then they bought that and then moved up the valley. And Gordon would say the big games in those days then, it was the Welsh League Division 1 and the 3 Pembrokeshire teams. Haverfordwest County, Milford United and Pembroke Borough. And none of those held the ascendancy all the time. But the crowds for those games, God, 2,000 sometimes.
Oh, yeah, easily. Easily, there were tremendous crowds. I mean, Rob Edwards would love a crowd of that proportion in today's game. Although the crowds are improving, Rob, don't take any exception to this now.
That's right. But in the end, those clubs, like Pembroke Borough had Frankie Donovan and Billy Reid. Billy was paralysed in the end when his car crashed. But Frankie Donovan played in the 1948 Olympics and scored goals. He was a legend, wasn't he? In Pembrokeshire, and everybody knew Frankie in Wales. They were managed by Des Shanklin, who became president of Haverfordwest County. Des was the manager there for many years, and he brought people. They had huge respect. Dixie Hale, people like that from Swansea. They all said he was an amazing manager. Never played a game of football in his life, Des, but he had that ability to make people feel good. Milford had a fella called Kenny. You have to have
Kenny Lowe.
Kenny Lowe, Mr. Milford Haven, Milford United, and these games were played. And I was a follower of Pembroke then. I lived of Pembroke Borough. I lived down that end of the county, and I knew all their players. Some of whom eventually came, like Mike Lewis and Weaver Callan and all those. Pat McQuillan played for Swansea, were great players. So those days, the 3 local teams, and isn't it a shame, God, that there isn't that same setup now?
It is really, Bill, but it's called progress, but unfortunately it isn't progress in that respect. I mean, we've lost 2 Welsh League teams, and as you said, the crowds for those derby games were something to behold, and they were really exciting times to look forward to. But Haverfordwest are now carrying the flag, and they're carrying the flag for Pembrokeshire, and that's the most important point we need to get across. And they're trying to get the community on their side. All the tribalism throughout the county needs to be put aside, and people need to go and watch the higher echelon of football in Pembrokeshire, and that is on the Bridge Meadow.
It's only when they go there they realise the quality of the football, because they're playing in the best in Wales, and they're doing really well. They're battling hard. People say, they only came 7th in the first half. Gordon and I would agree. I think that's a real achievement. With the clubs they're playing from North Wales, with the money that's going in there, then Haverfordwest are carrying the Pembrokeshire flag with a bit of style, really.
Definitely.
I don't know. There's lots of questions coming to my mind off the back of what you've just said. There's so much to dissect there. But we mentioned the community first then. So we've said it many times on the podcast here that there seems to be a big shift in the Pembrokeshire people's perspectives of the club nowadays. There is more, obviously, with the fantastic community projects going on at the club. There's far more engagement, and gate numbers are obviously, there's evidence to back that up, saying that more and more people are coming to watch. And for me, anyway, there's a wide range of ages coming through the gates, but one of the biggest increases I've seen is actually, Pembrokeshire League players who, if they've either not got a game themselves, or certainly the midweeks and the Friday nights and things like that, are coming to watch. Don't get me wrong, I'm a massive fan of the Pembrokeshire League. I think the standards across all the leagues, in Pembrokeshire, from the lower leagues to the top, they're all a high standard, and that's testament with Welsh Cup runs, the FAW Trophy, West Wales Cup winners, etc. But there is a huge jump up, particularly to the Cymru Premier. There's boys playing locally who've been at Haverfordwest and have had good times, but have gone back local. You've mentioned that there was a couple of Welsh League teams back in the day, with Pembroke Borough and Milford. Do you think, a club to sort of bridge the gap pardon the pun, but to bridge the gap to the Meadow, that Cymru Premier from Pembrokeshire League, it's sort of halfway development point. Do you think that would be an improvement then in Pembrokeshire?
Well, I
do you want to answer that one, Bill?
Yeah, and say it's a great idea, but there's still tribalism. What I want to see, first of all, let's mention the crowds. The crowds have improved. The huge improvement for me has been the kids. A lot of them are in the academy. They bring their parents. If you look at the last home game now when they beat Connah's Quay, the number of kids who now they've got Pembrokeshire, our radio now, Pure West. They've got them doing this silly oggy. The noise from that now with the kids is immense. And, they're doing a great job of promoting that. So the crowds, I still feel we need to get around the county and give people free tickets in businesses. They come in and join us, and they will like the product there. You're right, there are more boys coming now, funny enough, from places like Aiken and Merlin's Bridge, where they're, to me, the next step. Gordon, I hope, would agree. There's three sides that are outstanding. I don't think the standard is as good as 20 years ago, if I'm honest, overall. There's 3 or 4 very good sides, and they are Aiken, Goodwick, Merlin's Bridge, and Carew. Now, I'd like to see some of them start to be adventurous and say we're going into the West Wales League. Aiken played away last week against West End. We used to terrorise teams in Pembrokeshire years ago. It was nerve-wracking. Just go there and the young fellas be sitting on a wall saying, do you want us to look after your car, mister? and you look at those sides, like Aiken won there last week. Carew beat a very good Galaxy side from Wine Arloedd. And Goodwick lost narrowly. They are capable of playing at that level. It's just whether the players are prepared to travel every other week up the line. And that would be brilliant, I think. My greatest sadness with the Bluebirds was the day they decided to abandon the second team, which played in the Pembrokeshire First Division. Yeah. Because to me, that was the stepping stone. You could say to someone, come there. They've still got the academy now, so they can play for the academy. And, that's working. But, I want to see more people from Pembrokeshire be ambitious about going up the line, although it's a lot of commitment. I don't know what Gordon thinks about that.
Yeah, Haverford West County, when you look through the history of it, since the 60s, they've always had a youth side and also a Pembrokeshire League side. So, I mean, the academies now are taking over the youth sort of structure in the new sort of look Haverford West County brand. But not to have a team in the Pembrokeshire League, I think, is bitterly disappointing and sends the wrong message out to other clubs as well in Pembrokeshire. It's a sort of feeling that they're the crackers, so to speak. They're the main club. They can do whatever they want. Now, they need to engage with the community. And I think it's important that Haverford West County start in Pembrokeshire and have a team in the Pembrokeshire League. I know what you're saying about the bridging gap with talent, Ryan. There is a big difference from Pembrokeshire League football to Welsh League football. Obviously, there is. But there's been a lot of players over the years who have made the transitions successfully. You have Ben Fawcett and Jack Wilson just for prospects at the moment, and there's other lads coming through the academies, but those two spring to mind who were at Aiken as 16-year-old kids, and they've done a tremendous job for Haverford West County. So I would love to see Haverford West County have a team in the Pembrokeshire Football League and have some sort, to engage in that way as well. It's definitely they need another senior side because there's only 11 can play on a Saturday afternoon, as we know, and only there's 5 subs now on the bench. You're talking about 20 players in total, so to build on the strength and depth of the squad, the Pembrokeshire League side with a few quality players in there could lend itself to, bridging that gap. But there's it's finances as well as everything. It costs money to do these sort of things as well. So it's just a food for thought sort of. I think they should have a Pembrokeshire League side.
It's interesting. There's lots of pros and cons, I'd imagine, to it. I think the last 6 months, I don't think they would have had enough to. Well, they've only just had enough to fill one team of squad of players, let alone two with the injuries and things, but another story. Okay, excellent. It's something certainly. How many years is it since the reserve team folded then?
Well, it was unfortunately when poor old Derek Roberts passed away. It was around 2011, and they made the Senior Cup final just prior to that, and played against Hakin and lost. So they were doing okay in Division 1 and they got to a Senior Cup final as well, and then unfortunately it disbanded. But it's something that the club I would like to see them look at again and get another team in the Pembrokeshire League.
But they would need people of the dedication of Derek Roberts and Mick Ellis, who ran that side really, with help from a couple of others, and it does need that. But I tend to agree with Gordon. They should be there. To get it set up now wouldn't be easy because under the rules of the Pembrokeshire League, they'd have to start in Division 5, 4, 3, and they cannot go into the Pembrokeshire First Division because once they dropped out, they knew no second team can play in the First Division, and they are Haverfordwest. The fact that Haverfordwest have got a team up the line, I hope they would change the rules to fit that in because it's important for local football. There is a pyramid.
Pyramid system,
at the moment, the buck ends with Haverfordwest. And if what's great to see now, you look at Lucas Davis and those boys, Harry John, they're happy to go along and be subs for the first, because even if they get the experience, and even if they don't play, they're playing in the academy the next day, so they get in a game time. But you imagine what it's like for others who are not getting that game time. That's the problem, is keeping them all occupied. And if there was a second team, I think, like Gordon says, it would help. But I can see difficulties now because they dropped out.
I didn't think of the pyramid system, Bill. That's a valid point, that is actually as well. You need your teams to be playing at the highest level. And unfortunately, they could only play as high as Division 2 in the Pembrokeshire League under the current rule.
So young players wouldn't want to go and play in Division 2 when they can play in Division 1 with Hakin. Good to go.
Exactly.
Or any of the Merlin's Bridge or anybody else.
Yeah.
It's another thing to add to Rob's to-do list of considerations then for future developments, I'm sure. Coming on to Rob then, listened eagerly to his interview with you on Pure West Sports Show this week, sort of a mid-season checkpoint, if you like. There was a mention of Europe, and it's, we're in a good position, I feel, at the moment now, going into the second half of the season. I mean, we'll come on to that in more detail later, but let's go back to 2004, when the club last qualified for a European competition, the UEFA Cup. Gordon, I come to you on this one. I know you've got fond memories, particularly of the Ninian Park adventure, but what was that like as a club, achieving that and the weeks that followed?
Well, Bill would remember it as well. Deryn Brace was actually manager. Deryn from Tenby, who played for Wrexham and Norwich and came to Haverfordwest County, and Michael Lewis, who played for the Borough and Carew back in the day. He was his number 2 as well. They came in and they just totally revamped the club. The club was struggling, and I think Deryn and Mickey, if they're honest, were a little bit surprised how well things went as well. Deryn was a real leader as well, great character on the pitch. He was really tenacious on the pitch, and he expected his players to be. He was. They follow my lead, and they did, and they played some cracking football. It's the highest the Haverfordwest, I believe, have finished in the Premier League. They finished 3rd that particular season to qualify for the UEFA Cup, and obviously they played an Icelandic team, and the stadium wasn't big enough, so they had to go to Ninian Park. Well, not had to go; they were offered to play at Ninian Park. So I remember going up to that with my brother and my dad at that particular time. Obviously, I was with the Western Telegraph as well then. And there was a certain character who was just starting out on his journalistic journey, Riath Al-Samurai, who many of you probably might not know now. But he was a student at the Milford Mercury and the Telegraph, starting out on. He now writes for the Daily Mail. He's one of the chief sports writers. A fantastic character, and I remember him writing the report and him asking me to come over and check it before he sent it off to the Mail that particular day. But but going on, I actually had a chance to go out to Iceland. The Telegraph had said they would pay for somebody to go out and watch cover the game, and lo and behold, I was asked, but I had to decline because I had booked a holiday to the Isle of Skye with the family for a week, and it coincided with the Haverfordwest being out in Iceland. It's called Sod's Law, Ryan. So, Steve Adams, who actually was one of the sports reporters with me, he went and covered the game and enjoyed it. He said the beer was very expensive, about £12 a pint then in 2004.
Yeah, that's why he didn't
but
go.
He later became my boss. He
was told it was all laid on, but he had to buy his round. And he's never got a round in his life. He never paid to go anywhere. I could tell you stories about people being smuggled in the boots of cars rather than paying. But
for another day. Fantastic memories there. And it reminds me, we must have Tim Hicks on at some point, because obviously he scored the only Haverfordwest goal of that time, which I'm sure every time I speak to him, he informs me of. But great memories. Any other standouts then over the period of time you've been sort of following the Bluebirds? Any other memories from you both, or matches in particular?
Yes, we're saying as well, Wayne Jones played in that game in Iceland.
Yeah.
Wolvesy was playing there good.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He did play in the back. Yeah. They had a very good side, obviously, and there's quite a few local players in that particular side as well. Obviously, Lee Kendall was in goal then as well.
Yeah, my friend. Yeah. But it was worth recording as well. See, right, one of the problems that people didn't go and support Haverfordwest was, for a long time, it was a Swansea team that called itself Haverfordwest County. They trained in Swansea. They met in Swansea. They came down in cars and they went back. And you look at the great players that have been there. Gordon mentioned Ivor Allchurch. Mel Charles played there, John Charles, his brother. And I had the privilege of sitting next to John Charles in a Haverfordwest County dinner when he came as the guest with Duncan Ferguson. And he couldn't talk to you unless he had his hand on your arm or your shoulder. He was a lovely man. Derek Tapscott from Cardiff, Tappy, he was there. Stan Richards before that. And Arthur Willis played for Tottenham. Lee Trundle.
Arthur Willis.
Swansea.
He was manager of Haverfordwest County as well. Yeah.
Alan Curtis was with Swansea up until recently.
Another former manager.
And Derek Brazil, of course, who played for Manchester United.
Another former manager.
That's right. So it was, but they were all up the line, and people down here. Paul Jones and Adam Collins got a chance to play in the squad, and Jonah was the best goal scorer I ever saw in Pembrokeshire by miles. And he went there, but he lost interest in the end because he was come to train twice a week in Swansea, and when he got on, he was on the bench. And he wouldn't do that. He wanted to have a pint and a fag in Aiken Club.
That's the other thing. You have to be committed for playing football as well.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. You may have the talent, but you have to have the complete package. You know, you have to be dedicated. You know, and you really do, because it's more professional today than what it was years ago as well.
We'll come on shortly about Carnarvon this weekend. Is it's a Friday night travel. It's done properly nowadays, to be fair.
Yeah.
Has there always been elements of that over the years? Has there been overnights sort of a thing of the past as well?
No, good Lord, no.
No, it was always up and back on the same day, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Ryan, going back to the games you were saying, looking forward, or games that you've seen on the meadow, or brilliant games that you remember it, obviously, 2015, when we needed to win 5-0 in Aberdeen to be promoted. I'd never forget that evening. That was incredible. Incredible evening. I mean, Wayne Jones was manager then, obviously, and for us to get that scoreline and get promoted was terrific. And also recently, to be fair, the Belgian manager we had last season, we had a couple of high-scoring games. Kevin Druids, we beat 6-1, and then we went to Aberystwyth Town and won 6-0. They were cracking games.
Yeah,
I saw the Haverfordwest game in Aberystwyth. One of my best ever, I was at Cambrian and Clydach when they were the top side in Welsh football, and Haverfordwest went up there and won 2-0. I always remember, what was the boy Lewis in midfield? Left side of midfield.
Richie Lewis.
Richie Lewis scored a blinding goal, a bit like Duggan's last week. But it was played on a paddy field in the end. We had rain, snow, sleet. And by half-time, when we were winning 2-0, Cambrine and Clydach wanted out. No way did they want to play, because they were top of the table and they were losing. And the referee had more bottling than most I know. He said, no, it started the game, we're finishing. It hasn't got any worse. And it hasn't got any worse. It couldn't have got any worse. But we won that 2-0, and that was the most enjoyable I've ever watched a game in rain, snow, and sleet, because it was epic. And yeah, some of the players in that deserved medals. Richie Lewis was a star that night. Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned tens of different names from different eras who probably going to come into contention here now. I tend to ask everybody their dream team questions coming up here now, and it's going to be a tricky one, I know, but are you able to put a sort of five-a-side team together from the players you've seen over the years?
I could put 11 aside without thinking.
Go on, shoot them off, Bill. Who have you got?
What would be quite nice if Gordon and I just sort of look like goalkeeper. Now, to me, there have been good goalies like Kendall, who had the foulest mouth I've ever heard, and I fell out of it. And then I complained to the club about it with kids there, and we became firm friends. And when we went the start of this year to Pembrokeshire, after we'd done well in the first 2 games, who should I sit by with a cup of coffee on a picnic bench was Kendall. And he just got a job then. And we're good pals, but he was a good shot saver. But for me, Neil Fredrickson was the goalkeeper. He was big, strong. He'd take players out rather than let them go past him. And he would have been my goalie. I know you would disagree with that, God, I suspect.
I don't disagree with it, Bill. There's been some cracking goalkeepers over the years, to be fair. None other than Lee Idsey now. He's been brilliant over the last decade, to be fair. Yeah. Not so much with Harper West County, unfortunately. He was with Carmarthen Town playing his best football. But he did take over from Kendall. Yeah. But I go back further again. We spoke about it earlier. Talvin Harris.
Al Harris.
Played in goal from Fishguard. You know, he was a terrific shot stopper. Back in the 70s, he pulled off some brilliant saves. And prior to him,
he's been down once
this guy Brian Griffiths as well from Milford, Bill, who you would have known. He was another terrific goalkeeper. Not really big, but a tremendous shot stopper. Incredible. And in those days, Ryan, the keepers used to get quite literally manhandled as well. They weren't the biggest guys, but they were quite brave, those two. I remember watching them and thinking they were really good goalkeepers.
And in the back four, we've mentioned Darren Brace, Wayne Jones. Hughie Knight was a class act. Yeah.
You'll go back now,
for a while. He oozed classically, and for me, I still think the best centre half, Ray Davis, was brilliant. He was a hard man, became a manager. But to me, there's been no one better than Sean Pemberton. I can't honestly.
Sean Pemberton was.
I know he's accused of being the son.
He loved this, but he was outstanding.
And Gareth Elliott was another modern player.
Another good one.
They only knew one way: do your best, 100% all the time.
Yeah.
And another one that I liked at that time was Wyn Jones, who
another good.
Went up to Mid Wales and to play.
Yeah, there was a fellow by the name of Mike Johnson who played at the same time as Ivor Allchurch, who played
Swansea City centre half.
He was a really, really tidy player. He was, Mike, really tidy.
Yeah, but
good in the air, probably carrying a bit too much weight, but he just read the game so brilliantly. He was always in the right place and cleared up any trouble, you know.
Yeah, and he'd kick him off the park too.
Yeah, and prior to that, Bill, Mostyn Rowlands from Clarby Road. There was also Don Evans, who you spoke to the other day. Don, I remember him playing centre half for West County.
Police superintendent in his time too.
Police superintendent, yeah.
And then in midfield, they had in those days, it was just before or around the time of the Iceland games. They had Nigel French and Mickey George playing in midfield, who again had played. And when Nigel French was on form, he was just incredible on the right side of midfield. And Alan Curtis, of course, and Rhys Griffiths, who's still scoring goals occasionally with Pennapon. He had a short spell there.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he scored many.
Yeah. Right, I don't know. Colin Loss, I remember him playing in midfield as well. Colin was a classy midfield player. He's creative midfield player. Plus, he would get in and do the nitty gritty as well. He was a class act.
And Ronnie Rees, another Swansea.
Ronnie Rees. Remember
Left
Ronnie? Used to play for Wales and started off at Coventry, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you haven't lived here, right? You're only used to these.
Some of the names I'll admit, heard of or even watched myself, but some of them, I'm sure the older generation of listeners are following on. And
some of them,
they're probably gone, mate.
Yeah. They came back down there about 2 years ago and had the Des Shanklin suite, and I had a chat with some of them then. And I tell you what, they're still having a few pints and a fag, same as they had after games when they played down at the Bridge Meadow. And they always seemed to be larger than life characters in those days.
Yeah.
Because they all had jobs, right? They all were coming down there after being, working hard all week in a factory or a shop or whatever. Yeah.
We when we were doing the documentary last year, Barry Webb very kindly lent me his archive of images and things to look through, and some of those faces would have been in those team sheets and team photos, over the years.
Yeah.
So we'll have to dig some of them out, bro.
Another one that springs to mind is Eric James, who came over recently in November to the Meadow from Australia and New Zealand. Well, I remember Eric playing for Haverfordwest County up front. He was like a Gerd Muller type sort of forward, stocky, strong, got stuck in, and he knew where the back of the net was. One particular day, I think if you speak to Barry Vaughan about this, he actually transferred to Pembroke Borough and he played at London Road and scored a hat-trick against Haverfordwest County. He didn't mention that in the Bridge Meadow when he was over here, but I can tell you that now. He did. And I think Barry Vaughan was actually the referee. Yeah, and you have to remind him about that one.
And a very sad visit because Eric had come over because he's a very sick man, isn't he? Yeah, and he wanted to have one spell in his hometown, Okay. Great character.
Yeah.
Very good. There's certainly a walk down memory lane for no doubt a lot of people listening to that. This come to the modern day then. So obviously the great win against Carne last week sets us up nicely now going into the start of phase 2. Carnarvon away. I think it's going to be a pivotal few weeks ahead. As I said, with 2 points clear at Carnarvon, but it's with the Cymru Premier split. I think it's such a unique circumstances where you could have a good couple of runs now, a good couple of wins, and you're almost out of sight in that 7th spot. Just as much as you have a bumpy few weeks and you're right dragged into the mix. I think there's 7 places from 7th down to the relegation zone. So it's going to be an interesting 10 game league games to go. What's your feelings and thoughts around it? Are you edging your bets anyway?
Bill's the betting man. No, I truly believe if Haverfordwest County can keep their players on the pitch. There's been a lot of injuries, as you know, Ryan, throughout the season, with crucial and key players missing. If they can get those key players fit and well to play these last 10 games, so the majority of them anyway, I think Haverfordwest could sneak that 7th spot. But it won't be easy because every game, as you know and Bill know, it's tough. It is tough. You have to work your socks off to get that result, and you have to have an element of luck. You have to have an element of being in form, and Haverfordwest County, they did play really well against Carne, but that's only one game, Ryan. We've got another 10 to go now. That you've got to put that to the back of your mind and focus on one game at a time. I know it's a cliche, but they need to focus one game at a time and tick them off as they go along. Home form is important. They have to win their home games in this sort of tournament. Anything else away is a bonus. A draw or a win away would be fantastic. But your home games is paramount that you pick up 3 points.
Well, I'm known, Ray, as the world's worst tipster. Quite unlucky in some ways. But I think they'll do well. If they come 7th or 8th, I'll say well done. Because there's a danger people tend to think, oh, they're not playing any of the top sides now. They're 7th. It's going to be a cakewalk. And apart from Airbus, there's no other game you would say they're going to definitely win that. Home or away. I think we got a fantastic manager in Tony Pennock. Gary Richards is great alongside him. Mickey Ellis, we haven't mentioned him as the character who played for Haverford County. But it's going to be a slog. And I reckon 7th or 8th will do well. I think there was a mistake made to start the season when people say, oh, we're going to push for top 3 spot Europe, top 4 spot Europe. It isn't going to be like that ever. We're playing against sides that got plenty of money in general. And to stay in that division, I think on its own is an achievement. I praise Rob Edwards for what he's done when he's come in. He's tried to get more and more people involved down there, and I think that's fantastic. I just think there's a need to be realistic about it. I'd say 7th or 8th. I won't say 7th because I'll jinx them. But, you know, we love going down there, don't we? We get a great from the 2 Kevins on the ground, Alan Thomas. The volunteers down there are fantastic. We meet old-timers like Mickey Algeria and Gary Stevens. Mickey's still playing for Wales over 70s now. And it's a great place to go. But there's a lot of work still to be done. I met the new chief executive officer today, Georgina. Yeah. She's got very clear ideas the way they go. So I'm hoping she'll provide another real boost to the club. So all we say is come on the Bluebirds, God, isn't it?
Come on the Bluebirds,
indeed. Definitely.
Yeah.
Come on the Bluebirds.
I agree very much with what both of you have said there. I think it's been a bumpy first half of the season because, as we said, I know there's lots of cliches, but you know, injuries, new players gelling together, etc. But I think going off the last few games, you know, the win against Carne obviously stands out. But even the performance up at TNS, which is, you know, it's a free shot potentially going up to TNS, they really battled. And it was only, I think, late on that third goal, it gives the reflection goal and a little bit, you know, heavy in TNS's favour. But it could have gone at least a point up there at some stages of that game. Yeah. So, and again, mentioning the home support, I said it last week and I chatted with Yori that I think the home support now, the numbers of people and the noise they're making is going to be crucial. And I know the supporters bus is going to Carnarvon this weekend. They're notably loud up there themselves in Carnarvon. So it's going to be a good atmosphere. I think they are a big rival for that 7th spot going into the next time. So it's starting with a real big bang. I think I'm just licking my lips because it's going to be good footage for the documentary again, I think. Yeah. Who knows? Hopefully, come the end of the season, we're talking about another Iceland adventure that you'll be able to go on.
We'll probably have a game in the Scottish Cup against some team.
Where are you both heading this weekend? Is it football, rugby, or a bit of everything?
Bit of rugby.
Well, there's no local rugby. There's the Senior Cup quarterfinals taking place. There's some good games there. Goodwick are playing Carew. Moncton are playing Penna Robbins. Tenby are playing Camrose. So there's some good ties to watch there, and obviously there's First Division football as well on top of that. So
there's a bit of local rugby
going on.
The Quins are home, and Pembroke are home, and Narberth are playing in Pontypool, so you can say goodbye to that. But I might watch a bit of football as well. We'll see. I see Goodwick are playing Carew. I saw last year's game with that.
Well, enjoy. Thank you both for giving up your time to catch up. Really appreciate it. I think, keep up the good work on Pure West and the best multi-sports website in the West, pembrokeshiresport.co.uk.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'm heading up to Carnarvon myself, but I look forward to seeing you a week Saturday for the next home game now, Flint. On the 18th, which again is another tough test to start phase 2. But no doubt I'll see you down there. But yeah, thank you both. Appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Cheers, Ryan.
Ta-ra, buddy.